Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling something that is so omnipresent, so physically massive, and, so fundamental to our daily existence that we have effectively become blind to it.
Hmm.
It's the stage upon which our entire lives play out.
It is the backdrop of everything, quite literally.
Yeah.
The walls, the roads, the roof over your head.
Exactly. But I want to start by challenging a misconception that 99% of us walk around with. When you walk down the street and you see a new apartment complex going up, or a shopping center, or even just a shiny new suburban house, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
You see the crane.
You see the crane, you see the guys in hard hats, you see the cement trucks, you think, construction.
Naturally, that's the visible manifestation of the work. It's the loud part. It's the dusty part.
Right. But looking at our source material for today, which is a massive comprehensive breakdown of the real estate industry, it turns out that the physical building, the construction part, is basically just the final visible tip of a massive invisible iceberg.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's the victory lap. The actual race happened long before a shovel ever hit the dirt.
That is a very apt analogy.
Uh-huh.
Construction is just the execution phase. It's the assembly instructions being followed. But what we're diving into today is the creation of the instructions themselves.
Ah, okay.
We're talking about real estate development.
Yeah.
Or, property development.
And the mission for this deep dive is to look behind the curtain of how our built environment actually comes to be. We want to understand the difference between just stacking bricks to build a house and actually creating a community, because as I learned going through this research, those are two very, very different disciplines.
They are worlds apart. And to understand that difference, we have to look at the source material, which covers the entire spectrum, from the nitty-gritty of land subdivision, which is surprisingly complex, to the massive lists of professionals required to just get a project to the starting line.
And there was one specific distinction in the text that gave me an immediate aha moment. It said that real estate development is distinct from construction.
Right.
And it is also distinct from simple real estate investing. It's actually the bridge between the two.
That is the perfect way to frame it. Think about it. An investor has capital money, and they want a return on that money.
Sure.
A builder has the technical skills to erect a structure. They know how to pour concrete and wire electricity. But the developer,
Yeah.
the developer's the catalyst. They're the ones who take the money and the skills and mash them together to create something that didn't exist before.
The source uses a really cool analogy that I want to stick with today. It describes the developer as the orchestrator.
Yes, the conductor.
Like a conductor in an orchestra. The conductor isn't necessarily playing the violin, and they definitely aren't playing the tuba.
Right. They might not even know how to play the tuba.
But they're the one ensuring that everyone comes in at the right time, at the right tempo, to turn a bunch of disparate noise into a symphony.
Precisely. The developer converts ideas from paper into real property. They're taking something abstract, a vision, a gap in the market, a raw piece of land, and coordinating a massive, complex machine to turn it into something tangible.
Right.
And as we're going to see, that process involves a lot more than just drawing up some blueprints. It involves politics, finance, geology, sociology. It's everything.
Okay, let's unpack this. Segment 1. The definition of a developer. Because I think in pop culture, we have this image of the greedy developer in a suit, wringing their hands, maybe twirling a mustache.
Yeah, the cartoon villain.
The cartoon villain. But, strictly speaking, looking at the business mechanics, what is the core function?
The source defines it as a business process. And the range is huge. It encompasses everything from, say, the renovation and releasing of existing buildings, all the way to the purchase of raw land and the sale of developed land.
So, if I buy a rundown house, fix the kitchen, and sell it, flipping it, I'm technically a developer.
On a micro scale, yes, you absolutely are. You saw value where others saw a mess. You applied capital and labor to improve it, and you sold it for a profit. That is development. But usually when we talk about this industry, we're talking about something much grander. Buying 1,000 acres of desert and turning it into a functional city. The core activities listed in the source really show the breadth of this.
Yeah, let's run through that list because it's extensive. You have buying land, obviously, that's the first step.
The raw material.
But then there's financing the deals, which honestly sounds like a full-time job in itself.
It is. I would argue a developer spends more time talking to bankers and investors than they do talking to architects. The project lives or dies on the financing.
Okay, so you've got the land, you've got the money. Then building, and this is a key distinction, having builders build.
The orchestration part again.
Developing in joint ventures. And this one, which I loved, creating, imagining, controlling, and orchestrating from beginning to end. That just sounds exhausting.
It is immense pressure. And it brings us to the core economic dynamic that the text highlights,
Yeah.
which is absolutely crucial for our listener to understand.
Okay.
Developers usually take the greatest risk in the creation of real estate.
And consequently,
Yeah.
they receive the greatest rewards.
Right. High risk, high reward.
Yeah.
It's the fundamental law of economics.
Yeah.
But we need to ask, why is the risk so high? Why isn't it just a guaranteed paycheck like it is for the architect or the builder?
Well, the text hints at this, but let me see if I have it right. The architect gets paid, an hourly rate or a fixed fee to draw the plans.
Yep.
Whether the building sells or not, the architect gets paid, the builder gets paid to pour the concrete. If the building sits empty for 5 years, the builder still has their money.
Exactly. They are fee-for-service providers. They do their job. They get a check. Their risk is limited to doing their job correctly.
But the developer,
Right.
they're the ones fronting the cash for all of it.
You're front-loading capital. You are buying land, paying architects, paying lawyers, paying for permits, all before you have sold a single unit or signed a single lease. You are bleeding money for years, sometimes decades.
Decades.
Oh, for huge master-planned communities, absolutely. You're bleeding money on the hope that eventually someone will pay you more than you spent. If the market turns, or the city says no, or you find a rare species of frog on the land.
A frog can stop the whole thing.
A frog can stop a billion-dollar project dead in its tracks. And when that happens, the architect keeps their fee, the lawyer keeps their fee, but you, the developer, you are left holding the bag. A very expensive empty bag.
Which is a perfect segue into our second segment, because this blew my mind. I always assumed a developer was just a builder with a fancier title.
A common misconception.
But the source says, not all developers are builders. In fact, you can be a developer and never lay a single brick.
This is a nuance that even people in the industry sometimes gloss over, but it's fascinating. It's what our source calls the process spectrum.
The text describes this paper phase. Let's paint a picture here because I want to really understand the mechanics. Scenario A. I'm a developer. I find a plot of land on the edge of town. It's currently a cornfield. I buy it.
Okay, you own a cornfield. You're out a few $1,000,000. You have no income from it.
Right. Now, I don't call a single builder. Instead, I hire an architect to draw up plans for a nice suburban neighborhood. I hire engineers to figure out the drainage.
The horizontal stuff.
I go to the city council. I fight for the zoning change from agricultural to residential. I sit through a dozen painful 6-hour meetings.
With angry neighbors yelling at you.
I get the environmental approvals. I get the entitlements.
That is the key word, entitlements. The legal permission to build.
And then I sell it. I sell the cornfield with the stack of paper, the plans and permits to a builder, and I walk away.
And you walk away with a massive profit. You bought the land for, say, $1 million as a cornfield. You spent maybe another $500,000 on the architects and lawyers.
Okay, so I'm for $1.5 million.
Right. But now that it's shovel-ready with full approvals, you sell it to a national home builder for $5 million.
But why would the builder pay that? Why wouldn't the builder just do the paperwork themselves and save the $3.5 million?
Because the builder hates uncertainty. The builder operates on a production model. They have crews, they have supply chains, they have lumber arriving on specific dates. They need to build. They cannot afford to have their crews sitting idle for 2 years while you argue with the city council about traffic patterns.
So the builder is paying for speed and certainty.
Exactly. You, the developer in this scenario, have monetized the bureaucratic risk. You took the risk that the city might say no. The builder is paying you a premium to ensure the answer is already yes. They're buying a ready-made factory floor, essentially.
That makes so much sense. It isolates the value of permissions. That stack of paper is literally worth millions of dollars.
It is, and it requires a completely different skill set. The paper developer is good at politics, law, and community relations. The builder is good at logistics, project management, and, building things.
And then you have scenario B or C from the source. You have builders who act as their own developers. They do it all.
Right, the integrated model. They buy the cornfield and they build the houses. They capture all the profit, from the land depreciation all the way to the sale of the final home.
But they also take on all the risk, the political risk and the construction risk.
All of it. And on the flip side, you have builders who only buy the paper. They refuse to touch raw land until it's permitted. They've made a business decision to let someone else handle that headache.
It creates a spectrum of risk appetite. It allows different companies to specialize. Some specialize in politics and paperwork, the land developers,
Or entitlement specialists.
and some specialize in logistics and construction, the vertical developers.
Exactly. Vertical meaning building up off the ground.
And this ties into the scale of organization the text mentions. Development teams vary wildly.
Well, massively. There's no one size fits all.
It says it can range from a large company with everything, in-house architects, engineers, lawyers, the whole 9 yards.
Like a big national home builder, a Lennar or a D.R. Horton. They have huge divisions for every step of the process.
To a single principal with a few staff members who contracts everything out.
And that single principal is the pure orchestrator. They might work out of a small office, maybe even a home office, but they are directing a $100 million project. They are the brain. Everyone else is a hired hand. They're connecting the capital to the land to the experts.
Speaking of those hired hands, let's talk about the cast of characters. Segment 3, the ecosystem of counterparts. The source provides this massive list of professionals a developer has to work with. It felt like reading the credits of a Marvel movie, but instead of stunt doubles, it's soil engineers.
It is a massive production, and every single person on that list is necessary because real estate development touches on so many different facets of physical and legal reality.
Let's run through the list, but I don't want to just name drop. I want to know why they are there. Start with the design team. Architects, landscape architects, civil engineers, site planners.
Okay, a big group right there.
We know what an architect does. They design the building. But what's the difference between an architect and a site planner?
That is a crucial distinction. The architect cares about the building, the vertical structure, how it looks, the floor plan, the windows, the lobby. The site planner or the civil engineer cares about the horizontal.
The ground.
The ground. How does the building sit on the earth? How do cars get in and out? How does the fire truck access the building in an emergency? And, crucially, where does the water go when it rains?
The unsexy stuff.
The essential stuff. You can have a beautiful building designed by a star architect, but if the site planner messes up the grading and the parking lot floods every time it drizzles, the development is a failure.
Total failure.
You will be sued, tenants will leave, you will go bankrupt. The civil engineer is the unsung hero of every successful project.
And the landscape architect. That's just trees and bushes, right?
It's more than that. They design the outdoor spaces that make a place livable. Parks, plazas, pathways. They also often design the retention ponds that the civil engineer needs for stormwater. They make the necessary infrastructure beautiful.
Okay, so you need the horizontal and the vertical. Then you have the money and the law, market consultants, attorneys, lots of attorneys for agreements and government approvals, and lenders.
Let's start with the market consultant. Before you even hire an architect, you hire them. They tell you what to build.
They don't just guess.
No guessing. They do studies. They look at population growth, job growth, competing projects. They'll tell you, don't build two-bedroom apartments here. The market is saturated. Build studios and one-bedrooms for young professionals. They set the entire direction of the project.
So they're your first reality check.
They are. Then the attorneys are your shield and your sword. You are entering into contracts with everyone. The builder, the architect, the city, the tenants. One bad clause in a contract can sink you.
And the lenders, of course. No money, no project.
They're your most important partner, and they have their own lawyers and consultants who scrutinize every single detail before they write you a check.
Then the technical earth stuff. Environmental consultants. Soils engineers.
Let's talk about the soils engineer for a second. This sounds boring, right?
It sounds like dirt. Literally.
It is the stuff of nightmares for developers. Imagine you buy that cornfield. You are ready to build. The soils engineer drills a few test bores and finds expanding clay, or a sinkhole, or a high water table.
What does that mean for the project? I don't know what expanding clay is.
It means the soil literally swells up when it gets wet and shrinks when it dries. It will crack your foundation to pieces. It means your budget just exploded. Now you have to dig out 10 feet of dirt and replace it with imported gravel.
Which costs?
Millions. Or you have to drive piles, which are like giant concrete skilts, down into the bedrock. That can add millions to the cost. If you didn't budget for that risk, your profit margin is gone before you start.
So the soils engineer is basically telling you if the ground will actually hold your building up?
Yes. And then you have the environmental consultants. This is even scarier. Say you're buying an old parking lot in the city to build apartments. brownfield development.
Which we'll get to later, but that means potentially contaminated, right?
Suppose there was a gas station on that corner in 1960, or a dry cleaner in 1950.
Okay.
Both used nasty chemicals, leaky underground storage tanks, perchloroethylene.
Yeah.
Those chemicals leaked into the soil. If you buy that land, you own the cleanup. The government will make you clean it.
Even if I didn't dump the chemicals.
You bought the land, you bought the problem. The environmental consultant does what's called a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. They are the detective who tells you, hey, don't buy this unless you have $2 million set aside to scrub the soil.
Wow. Okay, moving down the list. Surveyors, title companies. These are the legal map drawers, right?
Surveyors tell you exactly where your property lines are, down to the millimeter. The title company makes sure the person selling you the land actually owns it, and that there are no hidden claims on it from, a long-lost heir from 1890.
Which I assume happens.
It happens. Then, finally, you get to the execution team. General contractors, subcontractors. And after it's built, leasing agents, property managers, city inspectors, right? The team just keeps growing. The source makes a critical point here. Success in development depends on the ability to coordinate and lead these interrelated activities efficiently and at the appropriate time.
At the appropriate time seems key. It's a sequence.
It's a cascade, a waterfall. You cannot hire the leasing agent before you have the permits, or you can, but you're wasting money. You cannot pour the foundation before the soils engineer signs off. If one person drops the ball, say, the architect is late with the drawings.
Then the whole parade stops.
The contractor can't start. The contractor's contract probably says you have to pay them a penalty for the delay. The bank is still charging you interest on the loan for that extra month. It's a domino effect.
It's a pressure cooker.
It really is. And the text points out that this whole team isn't just building a building. They are addressing a specific set of intertwined issues: environmental, economic, private, physical, and political.
The political aspect is often the one that blindsides new developers, I'd imagine.
It's the one they can't control. You can solve a soil problem with money. You can solve a design problem with a better architect. But you can't always solve a political problem. You're altering a community. That requires political buy-in. You have to convince the neighbors, the council, the mayor.
Which leads us directly into the most transformative part of this whole process. Segment 4, land development and subdivision. The source calls subdivision the principal mechanism by which communities are developed.
That sounds like dry textbook language, but stop and think about the weight of that statement. The principal mechanism.
Let's really break it down. What exactly is subdivision?
Technically, it is exactly what it sounds like. You take a large tract of land, a big rectangle on a map, and you slice it up into smaller shapes. You take a 100-acre farm and turn it into 400 quarter-acre lots.
Okay, drawing lines on a map.
But by drawing those lines, you are creating the DNA of a future community. The source says this process determines the community's appearance, the mix of land uses, and its infrastructure.
Right. Roads, drainage, water, sewerage, public utilities.
Think about the street you live on right now. Walk out your front door in your mind. Is the street wide or narrow? Is it straight or does it curve?
It curves?
Is there a sidewalk? Is there a strip of grass between the sidewalk and the road? Are the power lines overhead or buried? All of those things were decided by a developer during the subdivision process, probably decades before you moved in. And once those lines are drawn and the concrete is poured, they're effectively permanent.
You can't just change it.
You can remodel a house. You cannot easily move a road. You are living with the consequences of those decisions for a century or more.
So the developer is essentially designing the lifestyle of the people who will live there for the next 100 years.
Exactly. The layout of the streets dictates how you move. If they design a subdivision with lots of cul-de-sacs and no connecting paths, everyone will drive everywhere. There's no other option.
It's engineered for cars.
Right. If they design a grid with alleys and sidewalks, people might walk to a corner store. The developer, through subdivision, dictates the flow of humanity. They decide if neighbors will ever meet each other on a sidewalk or only wave from inside their cars.
That's a lot of power. And the text refers to purchasing unused land for this purpose as speculative development.
Speculative. It's a polite word for gambling.
But sophisticated gambling.
High-stakes poker. The text explains why land development, this subdivision process, poses the most risk of any type of real estate. First, it is dependent on the public sector for approvals and infrastructure.
What does that mean, dependent for infrastructure?
You are building 100 new houses. Those houses need to flush their toilets somewhere. You are betting that the city will let you hook up to their sewer plant? If the city comes back and says, Sorry, our plant is at capacity. Come back in 5 years. You are dead. Your project is worthless.
That's it.
It involves a long investment period with no positive cash flow.
I want to focus on this because I think this is where the financials really come into play. We see the big numbers. Developer sells lots for $10 million, but we don't see the bleed.
Economists call this the J-curve. Imagine a graph. The vertical axis is money in your pocket. The horizontal axis is time. When you start a land development project, the line on that graph goes straight down into the negative.
Okay.
You buy the land, minus $2 million. You pay the engineers, minus $500,000. You pay the city fees, minus $200,000. You have to build the roads and the sewer lines yourself before you can sell a single lot.
Minus $3 million. And during all this time, years maybe,
You have zero income. The land pays you nothing. It only eats money. And all the while, you are paying interest on the loans you took out to do all this. You are deep, deep in what developers call the valley of death.
And then, when does it turn around?
Then you finish the subdivision, you get the final stamp from the city, you sell the first lot to a home builder, ping, income. You sell the next lot, ping, the line on the graph shoots up. If you did your math right, you eventually cross back above zero and make a profit, but you have to survive the valley first.
And if the economy crashes while you're in the valley, if a recession hits and home builders stop buying lots,
You go bankrupt. The bank takes the land. This happens in every single recession. You can drive around the country and see them.
Yeah.
Half-finished subdivisions with roads that lead to nowhere, fire hydrants standing in empty fields, ghost towns.
wow.
Those are the projects where the developer ran out of cash before they could sell the lots. They died in the valley.
It's terrifying. The text also mentions a ladybird deed in the citations, which is a bit of a specific legal instrument.
Right.
But it just highlights how complex the transfer of these rights can be. It's not a simple transaction.
No, it's a reminder that land isn't just a business asset, it's property. It's tied to inheritance, family, and centuries of common law. Every transaction is layered with history and legal complexity.
So given that the risk is huge, you're bleeding cash, you're waiting on the government, you're praying for a good economy, how do developers mitigate this? How do they not just have ulcers all the time? Segment 5, mitigating risk with information.
They mitigate it with data. In the old days, a developer might have used their gut instinct. This town feels like it's growing, I'll buy that farm. Today, that is suicide.
So what do they use now?
The source specifically mentions spatial intelligence tools.
Spatial intelligence. That sounds like spycraft. What are we actually talking about?
We are talking about geographic information systems, or GIS, on steroids. We're talking about modeling population trends, demographics, and even psychographics.
Psychographics. What's that?
Not just who lives there, but how they think and what they buy. Developers can buy data sets that tell them people in this zip code tend to drive SUVs, buy organic food, have 1.5 kids, and go to the gym twice a week.
That is slightly creepy. Where did they get that data?
It's aggregated from all sorts of places: credit card companies, mobile phone location data, social media, public records. It's the reality of the modern economy.
And the goal, as the text states.
The goal is to identify the sort of customers a home builder or retailer would like to have surrounding their new development.
So if I'm a developer and I've subdivided this land and I want to sell a commercial pad to a grocery store chain, I don't just say, hey, it's a nice spot.
No, that pitch doesn't work anymore. You walk into the meeting with Whole Foods or Kroger or whoever, and you say, look at this map. Based on cell phone tracking data and credit card spending patterns, there are 5,000 households within a 10-minute drive who fit your exact customer profile. And, you continue, they are currently driving 20 minutes to your competitor. If you build here, you capture them. Here's our projection for your first-year sales.
You're using data to prove the future.
You are using data to reduce the uncertainty. If you can prove the demand is there, the risk goes down. The bank is more likely to lend to you. The tenant is more likely to sign. You're replacing a gut feeling with a spreadsheet.
It effectively weaponizes information to fight risk.
Exactly. It's an arms race of data.
Now, when we talk about development, I think we usually default to houses or shops. But segment 6, the universe of development types, the see also and external links sections of this source material were a gold mine.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to just list them. I want to talk about what they represent.
It demonstrates that the built environment is incredibly specialized. You don't just develop, you develop a very specific product for a very specific market.
Let's start with residential. We have the standard stuff, but then we have agri-hoods. What on earth is an agrihood?
It is a fascinating response to modern alienation. Instead of building a golf course community where houses surround a golf course, developers are building communities around a working farm.
So you look out your window and see kale.
You see a community garden, an orchard, maybe some chickens. You get a box of fresh produce delivered to your door every week as part of your HOA dues. It's selling a lifestyle of getting back to nature, but in a carefully curated, developer-controlled environment.
That's amazing. Then you have micro apartments and SROs or single room occupancy. This is the opposite end of the spectrum.
This is a direct response to the affordability crisis in big, expensive cities. If land is too expensive, you can't make the land cheaper, so you make the units smaller.
How small are we talking?
300 square feet, 200 square feet, sometimes even less. It's reviving the old boarding house concept, but branding it as minimalist living or co-living.
It's marketing spin on small.
It is. But it serves a vital economic function. If you don't build that, where does the entry-level worker, the student, the artist live in a city like New York or San Francisco?
True. Okay, let's move to industrial. We see business parks, science parks.
Think about a science park or a research park. This isn't just a generic warehouse. This is a developer creating an ecosystem for innovation. They're often located near a major university.
To get the talent.
To get the talent, they build specialized labs with specific ventilation. They build collaborative spaces. They put in a coffee shop. They are trying to create the next Silicon Valley by designing the physical space to encourage people to bump into each other and share ideas.
So the developer is trying to engineer serendipity.
Yes, they're building the hardware for the software of the economy to run on.
And speaking of hardware, data centers aren't explicitly listed, but they fall under this industrial umbrella. That's a massive sector right now.
That is the hottest sector in real estate, period.
Yeah.
Big, windowless concrete boxes that hold the internet. They're basically just buildings full of servers.
And developing them is different from a shopping mall.
Completely different game. You don't care about visibility from the highway. You care about two things: access to massive amounts of electricity and access to fiber optic cables.
Power and data.
That's it. The whole site selection process is about finding a spot on the power grid, not on the road network.
And the retail nuances. Shopping malls versus power centers versus retail parks. To the average person, a strip mall is a strip mall.
But to a developer, the economics are totally different. A power center, those big open-air centers with a Best Buy, a Target, a Home Depot, is designed for efficiency. Low maintenance, huge parking ratios.
Right.
A traditional enclosed shopping mall is incredibly expensive to run. You have to heat and cool all that common area, pay for security, clean the fountains. That's why so many malls are dying and power centers are surviving. The operating costs kill them all.
And then we get into the really wild stuff in the source. Arcology.
Listed under municipal.
This is sci-fi stuff, right? A single massive building that contains a whole city.
It is theoretical, mostly, Paolo Soleri's concept. But you see elements of it in real-world projects, like the line being built in Saudi Arabia. The ambition to create a self-contained, perfect environment.
It seems like the ultimate developer ego trip.
It is. I can build a better world inside this glass bubble.
Extraterrestrial real estate.
I mean, it sounds like a joke. But if we ever colonize Mars, we will need developers. We will need zoning. We will need infrastructure. We will need to decide who owns the best crater view.
Oh my gosh.
The principles of the business process we defined at the start, risk-reward coordination, will apply on Mars just as they do in Manhattan.
Universal laws of development.
Literally universal.
Okay, bringing it back down to earth for segment 7. The regulatory and economic web. We touched on this, but I want to get granular on the rules of engagement.
The regulatory environment is the box the developer has to play inside. And it's a very complicated box.
Zoning. This is the big one.
Zoning is the law that says you can build a house here, but you cannot build a factory. Or you can build a 2-story building here, but not a 10-story one. It's the city's master plan for what goes where.
And this leads to the NMBY versus YMBY war mentioned in the text.
This is the defining political battle of our time in real estate, especially in growing cities.
So break it down. NMBY.
NMBY. Not in my backyard.
Yeah.
These are existing residents, usually homeowners, who say, I like my neighborhood the way it is. Don't build that apartment building. It will bring traffic. It will block my sun. It will crowd the schools.
And YMB.
Yes, in my backyard. These are usually younger people, renters or advocates who say, we have a massive housing shortage, rents are too high, we need to build more supply, more density. If you don't build it here, where will people live?
And the developer is caught in the middle.
The developer is the lightning rod. They want to build, which aligns with the YMBYs, but they have to get approval from a city council that is often controlled by the voters who live there, who are often NMBYs. It's a vicious political fight on every single project.
And then there's the financial rules. We skipped over some terms earlier that I want to define now because they are the scoreboard for this game.
Right.
Cap rate and leverage.
Let's do leverage first, because it explains the extreme risk and reward. Real estate is almost always bought with debt. Other people's money.
So I don't pay $10 million cash for the building.
No. You put down $2 million of your own money, your equity, and you borrow $8 million from the bank. That's your debt. You're leveraged 4 to 1.
Why do that? Why not just buy a smaller building with the $2 million?
Positive leverage.
Yeah.
Say the building goes up in value by 10%. It's now worth $11 million. You made $1 million profit, but you only put in $2 million of your own money. So your return on equity is 50%.
That's magic.
That's how developers get rich.
Right.
But it works in reverse. If the building value drops 10%, it's now worth $9 million. You still owe the bank $8 million. Your $2 million in equity is now only worth $1 million. You've lost 50% of your money. If it drops 20%, it's worth $8 million. You owe the bank $8 million. You are wiped out completely. You have lost everything.
That is the leverage effect the text mentions. It amplifies the wins and the losses.
Precisely. And cap rate, or capitalization rate, is how they measure the value of a property's income. It's basically the yield. If a building costs $1 million and generates $50,000 a year in net profit, it's a 5% cap rate.
So it's like the interest rate on a savings account, but the building is the account.
Correct. And here's the secret. Cap rates measure risk. A brand new building with a solid tenant in a safe, booming city might have a 4% cap rate. An old building in a shrinking, crime-ridden city might have a 10% cap rate.
You get paid more yield for taking more risk.
You got it. And when a developer looks at a deal, they aren't just looking at the pretty architecture. They're looking at the spread between the cap rate, which is what the building earns, and the interest rate, which is what the bank charges them for the loan.
That spread is the whole game.
The spread is life. If the cap rate is higher than the interest rate, you make money. If interest rates rise like they have recently and go higher than the cap rate, the developer is underwater. The machine stops.
That explains why the entire industry is so sensitive to what the Federal Reserve does.
They are addicted to cheap debt. When debt gets expensive, development stops.
We also have brownfield versus greenfield in the regulatory section.
Greenfield is easy. Raw land, cornfields, forests on the edge of town. It's easy to build on, but it contributes to suburban sprawl.
And brownfield.
Brownfield is hard. It's the abandoned factories, old gas stations, contaminated industrial sites in the city. It's hard to build on, expensive to clean up, but it's good for the city because it recycles land instead of paving over more countryside.
And the government often gives incentives for brownfield, right? Tax breaks.
Yes, exactly. Tax breaks and grants to encourage developers to take that extra risk and cost. Otherwise, those sites would just sit there rotting forever.
So what does this all mean? Let's wrap this up.
If we look at the big picture, what we've seen is that real estate development is the engine of the built world. It is this high-risk, high-reward orchestration of lawyers, engineers, politicians, and financiers.
It's not just bricks and mortar, it's a process. It's a business model that creates the stage we live our lives on.
Every single street you walk down, every shop you enter, every office you work in, it started as an idea on a piece of paper. A developer had to fight for that idea. They had to push it through political barriers like the NMBYs, physical barriers like bad soil, and economic barriers like rising interest rates.
And they had to orchestrate that team of hundreds of people to make it happen.
Precisely. They are the person with the vision and the stomach for the risk to see it through.
I want to leave the listener with a final thought going back to that subdivision concept we talked about. The source said subdivision determines the appearance and mix of our communities.
Yes.
And we talked about how those lines on the map are basically permanent.
They are the fossilized remains of a business deal. That's a great way to put it.
So if developers determine the layout of our world, to what extent is our daily lifestyle? How much we drive, who we interact with, whether we walk to a park or drive to a mall, dictated by the business models and risk calculations of a developer from 30 or 40 years ago.
We are living in the legacy of their spreadsheets.
Mhm.
We navigate the world they financed. The width of your street was probably determined by a municipal code that a developer argued about in 1975 to save money on asphalt.
That is a thought to chew on the next time you drive through your neighborhood. Look at the curve of the road. Look at the cul-de-sac. Someone drew that line to maximize the number of lots they could sell to pay back a bank loan in 1985, and you are living on it today.
Indeed. It forces you to see the city not as a static thing, but as a historical record of capital flowing into concrete.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Hopefully you'll never look at a for lease sign the same way again.
Until next time.